Tonight is the night of the Miraj, and it's Miraj Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we commemorate this night. We commemorate another night in the year as well, which is the Milad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Brother Hafiz Imad Sahab talked about Ramadan, so I'll go back in the year. तो लोग किसी ने आज मुझसे पूछा कि मिलाद मुस्तफ़ा और मिराज मुस्तफ़ा में क्या फ़र्क है? What's the difference between the Miraj and the Milad? And actually, which is more important? I don't think you can compare the two, and you shouldn't compare the two, but they're different. On the night of the Milad, Allah Ta'ala blessed us with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Milad al-Mustafa हम पर इनाम था नबी पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की ज़ात की शक्ल में. मिलाद मुस्तफ़ा हम पर इनाम था और मिराज मुस्तफ़ा नबी पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम पर इनाम था. With the Miraj was a blessing upon the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And if you ask me, a true ashik, a true lover of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would commemorate the Miraj more, because when somebody praises and bestows favor upon the one you love, you are happy as well. So this is a double benefit. The night of the Milad is a blessing on us, the night of Miraj is a blessing on the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and a blessing upon the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is a blessing upon us as well. Because all of the benefits that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had, they translate to us. It's because of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that we are the best nation. It's because of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that we are the middle nation. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, unki ummah ne unko bahut tang kiya tha. We know that they tormented them a lot. They tormented them a great amount. And that's why there was a big difference between their ummah and us. There's a famous story, and the famous hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to show the difference between the ummah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the ummah of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam gathered all these people, some say 3,000 people, and they made dua to Allah Ta'ala for rain. They said to Allah Ta'ala, give us rain. But it didn't rain. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam said to Allah Ta'ala, all of these people are gathered here asking for rain. It's not raining. Why are you not accepting our dua? Allah Ta'ala said, कि मैं 3,000 लोगों की दुआ इसलिए नहीं कबूल कर रहा कि आप में एक ऐसा आदमी है जो चुगलखोर है. And because of one bad person, that because I'm not accepting your duas, because one person amongst you is bad. One person amongst you is bad, so I'm not accepting your duas. Whereas the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's ummah is where if all of the people are bad, but there's one good person within that making dua, all the duas everyone is accepted. So this shows the difference between and the blessings Allah Ta'ala bestowed upon the ummah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So why did this happen? And as Brother Hafiz Imad said, this happened in the year 10 of the Hijrah. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in Makkah Sharif in the year 10 years after he was the announcement of prophethood. And he announced the prophethood to people 3 years later. But he announced it to his close family and friends when he was at the age of 40, so 10 years after this. This was a year of sadness for the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's a year where Sayyidina Abu Talib, who was the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's uncle, who looked after the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam since the age of 8. And Sayyidina Abu Talib was a dal for the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He was a shield. So whenever anybody attacked the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Abu Talib defended the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's also the year when his wife passed away, Sayyidina Khadija al-Kubra radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And Sayyidina Khadija al-Kubra was a great support to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If you look at the start of Sahih Bukhari, when the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam received the wahi, he came back and confided in Sayyidina Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And Sayyidina Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha comforted, consoled and strengthened the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's heart. It's also the year of Taif. So when these three things happened, Allah Ta'ala blessed the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam with the Miraj. There's three parts of this journey. The Quran mentioned Isra. Isra means Raat ka Safar. So Isra means the night journey. And that's the Safar from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa. Then the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went through the heavens, as Brother Hafiz Imad mentioned, to Sidratul Muntaha. That's known as a Miraj, which means elevation, to rise. And then from Sidratul Muntaha, which is the last heaven, to meeting Allah Ta'ala, that's known as Ihraj. So there's three parts. And we use the term Miraj or Isra to refer to the whole night's journey, but technically there's 3 parts of this journey. So Allah Ta'ala blessed the Prophet ﷺ with this journey. Why? It was to comfort the Prophet ﷺ's heart, to strengthen the Prophet ﷺ's heart. And it does show an important lesson for us. It was to give the Prophet ﷺ's heart tasalli and yaqeen. Now, Allah Ta'ala could have given this through words. The Prophet ﷺ knew he was the greatest prophet. He knew he was Allah Ta'ala's beloved. He knew he was the Imam of all the Anbiya. He said that before many times. He knew his relationship with Allah Ta'ala. But Allah Ta'ala wanted to show this practically to the Prophet ﷺ. And this is an important lesson for us. If we want to console somebody, it's no good just saying words. No point saying, I'm with you all the time, I'm supporting you. You have to practically show it. You have to show it with your deeds and actions. So if you're trying to comfort somebody, you don't just say, I'm with you. You have to show that with action. You have to give your dalil, you have your dawah, I'm with you, I'm aapke saath hai. But then you have to show in your actions that you're with them as well. You can't just do it through words. This is an important lesson for us. This is why Allah Ta'ala showed it. The Prophet ﷺ had yaqeen. But Allah Ta'ala still showed the Prophet ﷺ these things. The other thing to see on this night, and the other thing as we mentioned was Brother Hasnain with his Naat Sharif and other brothers, the whole of the Miraj is a Naat of the Prophet ﷺ. It's a eulogy of the Prophet ﷺ. And every step is the praise of the Prophet ﷺ. Right from the start, there is protocol. The Prophet ﷺ didn't go on the Miraj journey. Nabi ﷺ Miraj par nahi gaye the, wo le gaye the. They were taken. That's what the Quran says, be. What's the difference between being taken or going yourself? If you turn up somewhere yourself, you come yourself. But if you're brought there by the one who wants you there, that's protocol. That shows the importance. That's why when Prophet ﷺ went to reach heaven, he was asked, as Brother Hafiz Imad said, has he been invited? That's a different thing, being invited and just going yourself. You can see the difference in honor. It shows that Allah Ta'ala took him through this and wanted to show him the protocol. There's a big difference in protocol. So this shows that Allah Ta'ala wanted to show the Prophet ﷺ protocol. Wanted to show the Prophet ﷺ that special status. So when we show the Prophet ﷺ special status or protocol difference, that's where we're doing it. We follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So when we stand for the Salah of the Prophet ﷺ, when we stand before the Rosa of the Prophet ﷺ, we're doing this to show protocol to the Prophet ﷺ. So it shows that Allah Ta'ala showed the Prophet ﷺ protocol. He could have said, Ya Rasulullah, come. But he didn't. He sent Jibreel alayhi salam, and he sent the means, the Buraq, which travels at the speed of light. So Allah Ta'ala showed the Prophet ﷺ that protocol and showed the VIP status. That's why this night was there to show the Prophet ﷺ that I am with you all the time and I'm supporting you through this. So this is the famous verse of the Quran. And we'll go through this word by word to see how every word of this surah, of every word of this verse, actually supports the Prophet ﷺ and magnifies and signifies the importance of this journey. Allah Ta'ala says, Subhanalladhi asra bi abdihi. Subhanalladhi means he is pure. Pak hai wo Zaat. Subhanalladhi, Pak hai wo Zaat. Pak from what? Pak from air. Pak from Kuzori. He's free from any weakness, free from any defect. He didn't say Allah Ta'ala took the Prophet ﷺ on the Isra. It says Subhanalladhi. Allah Ta'ala made everyone know. Didn't mention his name, but said, I am pure. I am free from any defects, of any weaknesses. I am strong. So everything that happens afterwards, jo kuch aage bayan kiya jayega, you must see in this context that I am strong, I am powerful, I have no defects. So whatever happens, you can't go against it. Your mind might be weak to understand it, but the entity that took him is not weak to do it. So it's your mind that's weak, not the actual thing that happened. So everything that happens after this is mentioned, you have to believe it. If your mind can think, how can that happen? That's the weakness in your mind. There's no weakness in Allah Ta'ala to prevent this from happening. So that's why I said, Subhanallah, Asra, the night journey, Raat ka safar. Bi abdihi, le gaya apne abd ko, took his servant. Didn't mention took Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Rasul or Nabi, but took his abd. took his servant. This shows a special relationship that there is with Allah Ta'ala. That he is Allah Ta'ala's messenger, he is Allah Ta'ala's prophet, but he's also Allah Ta'ala's servant, he's also Allah Ta'ala's abd. And bi abdi, he, his servant. Allah Ta'ala is confirming that you are my servant. What more can anybody want than somebody confirming that you are my servant? Allah Ta'ala is saying you are mine. Everybody wants to be an abid of Allah Ta'ala. Everybody wants to be a worshipper of Allah Ta'ala. But does Allah Ta'ala see us as his worshipper? Does Allah Ta'ala see us as his servant? Have we reached that status or not? Here Allah Ta'ala confirms that the Prophet ﷺ has that rank, that he is the abd of Allah Ta'ala, and he confirms. Because remember the verse of the Quran which says, why were we created? Allah Ta'ala says, I created everybody to worship me. And this is saying, abdihi. You created to worship Allah Ta'ala. Here he said, you are the worshipper of Allah Ta'ala. So he confirms that the purpose of creation is in you. That's why we say, our brother Hafiz Imad said that Adam al-Islam was the first creation. I think that was a slip of the tongue. The Prophet ﷺ was the first creation, and Adam al-Islam was the first human to be created in that form. So the Prophet ﷺ is the true abd of Allah Ta'ala, because the reason for creation was the abd and the marifah. And no one has more marifah of the Prophet ﷺ, of Allah Ta'ala than the Prophet ﷺ. Conversely, the Prophet ﷺ once said that nobody knows me except Allah Ta'ala. This shows that relationship with Allah Ta'ala. Laylan. Raat ke kuch hisse mein. Laylan means raat, but in this space, it means raat ke kuch hisse mein. It means a part of the night, a small part of the night. Ulama said, Mufassirin said, Asra means night journey. Asra means raat ka safar. But again, Laylan, raat ka zikr kyun kiya? It's there to say there was a small part of the night. So, at that us waqt, raat ka safar, Makkah se lekar Baitul Muqaddas tak, ajeeb safar tha. Because you couldn't do it in one night. Kahin nahi lagte the us waqt. So it was an ajeeb then. But look at the Quran, said, it's reinforced that it happened in a small part of the night, because Allah Ta'ala knew there'd come a time when you could travel from Baitul Muqaddas to Makkah Sharif in a few hours. I think it's only 1.5 hours or 1 hour journey now. And inshallah over time you get even less and less as transport increases. So people could have said today, what's so special about going in the night from Makkah to Baitul Muqaddas? That's what Allah Ta'ala said, Laylan. It wasn't the whole night, it was a small part of the night. And actually we don't even know how small part of the night. So no matter how much technology advances, it will never be as quick as the Prophet's journey. Because Allah Ta'ala left it undefined. It doesn't say whether it was 1 hour or 2 hours. There's other hadith, the Prophet will say that when he returned back home after all of this journey, not just from Baitul Muqaddas, from all the way to meeting Allah Ta'ala, the Prophet's bed was still warm. So it shows how much small part of that night is. And in those countries, actually, the nights, because the desert countries, actually the nights are colder, which means that actually even quicker the bed should get colder as soon as you come out of it. So only in a small part of the night, Minal Masjid al-Haram, from Masjid al-Haram se is where the journey started. So as we know, some people kuch kehte hain, wo apni phupi ke ghar the, or some say they were in Masjid al-Haram. Others say that they came from the house to Masjid al-Haram, and at that place, the story in Sahih Bukhari where Jibreel alayhi Ameen opened up the Prophet's chest and they washed out everything that was in there with the Zamzam water to clean it out. Again, this is symbolic to show that everything in you is pure, and anything that any doubts that there may be are being washed out, and any doubts the world may have about you are being cleansed and pure and given you the purity. Against this symbolism, and symbolism is an important part of Islam. And you can't just say, because if you think about it, why do we pray namaz? And we'll come on to namaz later on. Why do we pray namaz? Surely our intention, our heart should be enough. But it's not. You have to have the action as well. Innamal a'malu binniyat. It's not that actions are based on deeds. It's not that deeds are your actions. No, your deeds are your intentions. Your actions are based on your intentions, which means that you have to have the intention, but you must also have the deed as well. You can't just have the intention. Intention is important, but you have to have the deed. Similarly here, not just saying the words of the Prophet that you are the greatest prophet, you are the Imam al-Anbiya, you are the most beloved to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala showed in practice. So both things have to happen, that you can say it, but you need to also do it as well to prove that it's true, to prove it and to consolidate our hearts. Because remember, for us especially, the devil is always attacking us and putting doubts in our hearts, So being able to see something as well with your eyes increases that yaqeen. So you have three types of yaqeen, and that's moving off subject. Your ilmul yaqeen, which means you know something to be true. Then you have ainul yaqeen, which is higher, means you've seen it with your own eyes. So ilmul yaqeen was Allah Ta'ala telling the Prophet ﷺ that you are the greatest. Ainul yaqeen was Allah Ta'ala showing the Prophet ﷺ that you are. And then that then moves to the highest level, haqqul yaqeen, where you actually become it. So from Masjid al-Haram ila al-Masjid al-Aqsa. Aqsa, the word Aqsa means small, it means far away. So that's what the Arabs know, that masjid, that it was a holy mosque which is far away. Masjid al-Aqsa, dur wali masjid. So Aqsa means something that is dur, something that is far. So to Masjid al-Aqsa again, use this name rather than Bayt al-Muqaddas went to Masjid al-Aqsa to show it was a far away place. Again, to reinforce that this was a special journey, it wasn't a minor journey, it was to Masjid al-Aqsa. الذي باركنا حوله لنريه, ताकि हम आपको दिखा दें अपनी निशानियां जो उसके इर्द गिर्द हैं. So we could show you our signs and the blessings that are around it. Again, it says here, not the benefit, ये नहीं कहा गया कि मस्जिद अक्सा की बरकत, वो बरकत जो उसके इर्द गिर्द है. तो उलमा फरमाते हैं अगर उसके इर्द गिर्द बरकत है तो मस्जिद में कितनी बरकत होगी. So it says the blessings around it. Ashraf Ali Thanwi in his Nashr-e-Tee mentioned there are two types of blessings around Masjid al-Aqsa. The two types of blessings. First is the blessings that the prophets are buried around Masjid al-Aqsa. And that's a blessing for Masjid al-Aqsa that the prophets are around there. So it shows that one of the blessings that the graves of the pious, the graves of the prophets are a source of blessings. And you have this famous hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said that when I was being taken to Masjid al-Aqsa in the night, मैंने हज़रत मूसा अलैहिस्सलाम को अपनी कब्र में देखा, वो नमाज पढ़ रहे थे. It says I saw Musa अलैहिस्सलाम in his grave. Now if you draw a line from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa, so that Musa अलैहिस्सलाam's grave should not come in the way. It shows that it went past the grave of Sayyidina Musa अलैहिस्सलाam. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioning that to you also shows that there's something special about when you go on a journey to go past this. There's a famous book of Salah of Jilalul Ifam fi Salati ala Khair al-Anam of Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, was a student of Ibn Taymiyyah, and they mentioning that the Sahaba Ikram, after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Tabi'in, whenever they would go on a journey, they would go past the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. So they always pass that by whenever they would go anywhere. And this is why we and especially our people, our elders, जब भी किसी सफर पर जाते या मस्जिद से गुजर कर जाते या किसी औलिया की खास जगह से बरकत वाली जगह से जाते, especially when our people in our country get married, अक्सर the barat goes to Khari Darbar or somewhere else, or at least goes to the mosque. This shows that when you're on an important journey, you go past the tombs and the places of barakah. So the other blessing that I should have mentioned is the great fruit and the vegetation that's around it. Allah Ta'ala has blessed all of these places with the worldly blessings and spiritual blessings. The other blessing that is inside Masjid al-Aqsa is that the prophets from Sayyidina Ibrahim al-Islam all prayed in Masjid al-Aqsa. They made this the place of their prayer. So they didn't just face it, it wasn't just their Qibla, because at that people then, so even if you look at churches today, just like our mosques face Makkah Sharif and the Kaaba, the churches, they face Baytul Muqaddas, they face Jerusalem. So that was always their Qibla, so this was the Qibla of those people. But the prophets also worshipped in there. So this shows, again, the protocol that Allah Ta'ala gave to the Prophet ﷺ. So when the Prophet ﷺ went to Masjid al-Aqsa, as Hafiz Imad mentioned, they led the prophets in prayer. So all the souls of the prophets were gathered there, but they led them in prayer. When they led them in, but before that, there's a hadith in Muslim Ahmad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, which says that before they led the the prophets in prayer, they led the angels in prayer first. So they were the Imam of the angels first. Nabi Pak Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam जब अंबिया की जमात से पहले उन्होंने इमामत की थी फरिश्तों की जमात की. And this is mentioned in Muslim Ahmad. This also then shows that the Prophet ﷺ is the Imam of the angels. But I say that the angels would have asked the Prophet ﷺ to lead them in prayer, to get the barakah of following the Prophet ﷺ in prayer. Because who in their right mind gets a chance to be led by the Prophet ﷺ in prayer, will he give that up? So I would say that they asked the Prophet ﷺ, asked Allah Ta'ala for that permission, so they led that in prayer. Then they led the Anbiya in prayer. Then after that, a gathering took place. Again in Muslim Ahmad in the Hadith. So just as we have a gathering on the night of the Milad and on the night of the Miraj to celebrate and mention the virtues of the prophets, all of the prophets gathered there, and each prophet spoke, and each prophet mentioned his virtues. Every prophet said what virtues they had, so all of them gave their virtues. And then he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ mentioned his virtues, and he said that and this shows that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned those virtues which distinguished him from the other prophets. He mentioned, I am Rahmatul lil Alameen. I am a mercy for all of the universe. No other prophet is a mercy for the whole of the universe. The Prophet ﷺ said, I am the mercy, not just for humans, not just for my ummah, but for the Alameen, for all of the universes. He then said, I have been sent in al-Khalqi Qafa. I have been sent to all of the creation. Some prophets were sent to the Bani Israel, some prophets were sent to a locality. But the Prophet ﷺ is a prophet, a messenger to the whole of creation. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, I am Khatam al-Nabiyyin. I am the last prophet. There's no prophet after me. This shows its virtue in being the last prophet. So anybody says, it doesn't matter whether you're the last prophet or not, it does matter. Because the Prophet ﷺ mentioned it, that I am the last prophet. And there is benefit in the last prophet. It means no one comes after you. Because every time somebody comes after you, they're normally better than you, or they normally excel in you in some manner. So, जो भी चीज़ बाद में आती है अक्सर is better because they have more time to do something, or things have advanced and developed in technology. So whenever our people, especially some of our relatives, when they build a big court here in Pakistan, you say you might build a big court, you might be the best one today, but next year someone will build a better one than you. 10 years time someone will build a better one than you. So usually the last cottage we build is the best one because people will try to excel themselves. And so you can never get ahead. So that's why being the last one shows that no one can be better than the Prophet ﷺ. It's all ended on the Prophet ﷺ. And then the Prophet ﷺ also said, my ummah is the best. So this is a virtue of the Prophet ﷺ, that his ummah is the best. So when you want to be a naat of the Prophet ﷺ, you need to be the best person, because the Prophet ﷺ will take pride of you. Allah Ta'ala will take pride of you, but the Prophet ﷺ has pointed out to you to be the best nation. So you need to be the best nation. You have a responsibility to be that. So when the Prophet ﷺ mentioned all these, then Sayyidina Ibrahim a.s. stood up at the end and said, it's because of these virtues that he is the greatest prophet of all. And he has the most fazilat and is the most afzal of you all, because of these virtues that he has mentioned. So this practically proved to all the prophets and to the Prophet ﷺ himself that all the other prophets did have virtues, all the other prophets were good, but you are much better. And you have the greatest rank amongst them all. So it's practically proven in that gathering. So any doubt that you may have had, that someone might say, so-and-so's better than me, so-and-so passed, you've done it. We have that debate nowadays, especially in sports, you think, is this sports person better than that sports person? But they never played each other because they're a different era. Or today's cricketers better than 30 years ago, so you don't know. But if you had them together in one place, then you could. Here, all the prophets came together, and they mentioned their virtues, and it was made clear that the Prophet ﷺ is the better, again, as I said, extinguished all doubts what this night was for. Then the Prophet ﷺ, I'll try and finish off now. Then the Prophet ﷺ, when he met Hazrat Musa al-Islam, then he went up and met Allah Ta'ala. When the Prophet ﷺ met Allah Ta'ala, and thing to remember, this was the night Allah Ta'ala gifted. Allah Ta'ala ne ek inam diya tha. That was 50 prayers. Allah Ta'ala blessed us with 50 prayers. And remember, it wasn't Allah Ta'ala forced us to have 50 prayers. Allah Ta'ala compelled us or made it difficult for us. Allah Ta'ala gifted us 50 prayers. Then the Prophet ﷺ came back with the 50 prayers. But the Prophet ﷺ accepted that. The Prophet ﷺ came back as Musa asked what happened, and said that the Prophet ﷺ said 50 prayers. Sayyidina Musa Islam said, I know these people, reflecting on his own nature, they can't do 50 prayers. That's too difficult for them. So, so go back and ask Allah Ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ went back, asked Allah Ta'ala, can there be any reduction in this? And Allah Ta'ala reduced by 5. Then he came down to 45. Then when they came back, he said, it's now 45 prayers. Then Musa Islam said the same thing again. So that's still too much. So the Prophet ﷺ went back to Allah Ta'ala and reduced by another 5. And this continued until 5 prayers were left. And Musa Islam said the same thing again. That's going to be too much. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I can't go back now. Because if it's coming down in 5s and you go back, there'll be nothing left. And you don't turn back a gift. You know, whenever it's sunnah that whenever somebody gives you a gift, you accept it, even a small part of it. And this is what happened, you accepted a small part of it. So whenever somebody gives you a gift, you should always accept it as a Muslim because it keeps the heart. And especially if somebody poor gives you a gift. So whenever any of you go out to Pakistan or your own countries and a poor relative gives you a gift or asks you to come and eat at their house, you should go because they're poor. If they're rich, ignore those people if you want to. But certainly if they're poor, to keep their heart and their taskin, go to them and accept their gift. It's small, but you accepting it. Then the next day you give a much bigger gift back to them because you don't want them to, lose out or be under financial pressure. But always accept it from them. Accept gifts. As Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ keeps the heart of the Prophet ﷺ and never break anyone's heart. Never break. You don't know what that small. You might think it's a small matter, but it may be a big matter for people. So we had 5 prayers left. And so whenever you pray your 5 prayers, remember this is a gift from Allah Ta'ala. And Sayyidina Musa Islam said that you want him to be able to do 5. So prove them wrong in a good way. Pray those 5 prayers. Things here, Allah Ta'ala wanted you to pray 50 prayers because that's what you do, 50 prayers. If you did 50 prayers, what would happen? You'd be doing it all the time, wouldn't you? There's only 24 hours in a day. Even if it's not even every half an hour you'd have a prayer, even less than half an hour, because if there was every half an hour you'd have 48 prayers. So it shows Allah Ta'ala wanted you to be worshipping Him all the time. There's people nowadays, again, as the devil puts misleading thoughts in your heart, who argue with us saying, why do you do all this extra worship? Why do you have all these extra gatherings? They're not farz upon you, they're not compulsory upon you, they're not stated anywhere. Why do you do all of this stuff? This is started the last couple of 100 years. There was a famous scholar of the subcontinent called Sheikh Abdul Hayy Lucknowi. He actually wrote a Salah saying that doing extra ibadat is not wrong, it's actually good. Because people started saying doing extra ibadat is wrong. So people say, where's this Milad Sharif, where's this Mehfil al-Zikr, where's all these other things that you do, where's this Khatam Sharif that you do, where's all these du'as that you do when somebody dies. But Allah Ta'ala wanted us to be in His worship all the time. He gave us 50 prayers. It was come down to 5. It doesn't mean that you can't do the 50 prayers. It shows that you should be looking for any excuse to worship Allah Ta'ala. You should be looking for any excuse to gather together to remember Allah Ta'ala, to eulogize the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, to make dua to Allah Ta'ala, because that's what prayer is. It's remembering Allah Ta'ala, eulogizing Allah Ta'ala. In your namaz, you do durood upon the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is where the virtue of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam comes, and also you make dua to Allah Ta'ala. So Allah Ta'ala wanted you to have 50 prayers, which means He wanted all of your time. So if anybody asks you for a proof of why do you do this, the proof is Allah Ta'ala gave us 50 prayers, which meant that we would be always doing this all the time. So this is what we should always be trying to do. And then it says, the verse ends, Innahu huwa samiul basir. Allah Ta'ala, wahi hai dekhne wala aur sunne wala. He is the one who is hearing and seeing. Someone said this is a warning to those who reject the Miraj. Because people said this can't happen. It defies belief, defies logic that somebody can go from Makkah Sharif to Baytul Muqaddas and also to the top. Allah Ta'ala saying, I'm seeing your rejection. I can see what you're doing. So fear Allah Ta'ala. So in a way it's threatening us. Starts up by Subhanallah, reminding you that Allah Ta'ala is all powerful, He can do all of this. And then He ends up by saying, He is seeing everything and He's watching everything, what you're doing. So Allah Ta'ala is seeing how you are commemorating this night of the Miraj. The Miraj has been mentioned in the books of Hadith. There's many Hadiths in Sahih Bukhari and all the 6 books of Hadith that we know about. Others say there's 9 books of Sahih that we know about. And every other book and every other seerah. So commemorating and reminding ourselves of the Miraj. is something to do, because if it wasn't, why is it mentioned in the Quran? It's mentioned in the Quran to remind us that this event took place and there's lessons from this. So may Allah Ta'ala give us the ability to commemorate these nights, and especially this night, and to learn from this, and to put the virtues and the love of the Prophet ﷺ in our hearts.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. The beauty of the reminder that Allah Masab gave is that when we look at the night of Miraj, I want to finish